Welcome to your Nevada County Airport that is rooted in gold. Let me show you a few things that it offers. Our self-serve island is just outside the terminal for quick access for pilots to use our facilities. The terminal also serves as the airport administration office that is centered at the midfield. As well as a comfortable place to relax, the terminal offers free Wi-Fi, a guest flight computer, and a new flight simulator.
The airport was actually built in 1933 and why, and how they, brought in kids who were vacationing from high school to clear the brush and build the first hangar that Stu's father's airplane was kept in, and tying all that together with these memories of the 60s, and then meeting the people who continued that generation, on and on, is what built a lot of. But my main memory is just the really cool airplanes that were up here all the time.
Well, Mr. McBoyle, history with airplane long before we got here. For example, the airplane that my father flew here for the mine was at least the third airplane Mr. McBoyle had. Way back before I was around, or anybody, or my father, I think Mr. McBoyle had a travel air up here, a big 6,000 travel air. And not long after that, he bought a Vultee V1A, which was surplus from American Airlines. In the 30s, airlines were restricted from flying single-engine airplanes, midnight and so forth. And so he bought that all-metal airplane, which is a pretty formidable airplane in those days, still would be. And his airstrip was originally facing the old hangar where it burned down. The locations here on the airport have always been somewhat a question for the hangar. Well, Tim wrote up, he drew freehand the pictures you've ever seen exactly out of a wallet-sized photograph that I gave him in 1938. And he placed the hangar exactly where I remember it, the physical layout of all the stuff here on the field. I can still remember it clear back in the 40s. And it was somewhat different physically than it is now. For example, the original hangar that Tim drew here was at the end of a ditch, NID ditch. Going out of that ditch, just a few hundred yards to the east, was a big lake there called North Star. And North Star got all their water out of there for their air compressors and so forth.
Yeah, the big pump wheel down below. That water came from up here.
Yeah.
All gravity.
Yeah, but since then, it's not a lake anymore. It's been all filled in, and Cal Fire is there and so forth. And on the east end of the airport was a reservoir called the Empire Reservoir. Empire Mine got their water out of here for their air compressors and so forth. But that's all obliterated now. You can still see the imprint of the Empire Reservoir up there, early trees and so forth there, bothering you right now.
Well, during the middle 1960s, I became fascinated with just the beautiful World War II vintage aircraft. My dad was a really big historian, really wanted us to know that history. So we lived on Grandview Terrace, which is on the outgoing flight path here. And you have PBYs, B-17s, B-25s going over the house, and as a little kid, it's just mind-blowing, you know. Well, I want to mention something else too, you know, in addition to the foundational history and all the, you know, ingenuity and things that were accomplished here. You know, as one who's organized air shows here, it is a go-to place for renowned pilots, photographers, you know, publicity people. The lighting is beautiful. Everything happens right in front of you. I don't know how many people realize how many airplanes are actually built up here in these hangars. You know, the guys flying around the kit builds and all that, they build them right here. There's a great community of not only aircraft makers, but pilots, and you look at what the Young Eagles program does in the community, you know, you've got a wide variety of, I mean, there's many museums all over this airport. Well, there were a lot of famous people, politicians, business people that have come and gone out of here. I have a picture, like I said, of Ronald Reagan flying in a Jetstar. During some of the air shows, we became good friends with Clay Lacy, who is the icon of general aviation, jet business and movie filming business. He's been up here twice, 3 times. Twice he brought his DC-3, beautifully restored American Airlines DC-3. He came up and gave a wonderful talk of how much he loved this area, loved coming here. A lot of these pilots who bring their high-end airplanes, they, you know, we offer them fuel, we try to get sponsors for them. No, I love it up there, we're just going to come up. So these are guys coming up in P-51s and whatnot. As you know, General Yeager spent much of his life here, and we've interviewed him a number of times. He flew in and out of here all the time. Dick Landis, who wasn't a pilot at the time, but he was the CEO of Del Monte Corporation, also wrote a number of books. He was a P-51 pilot, 9th Air Force during World War II. He loved this place. He sponsored heavily everything that we did. You know, we have in doing the air shows, we've actually, quite by accident, formed a really wonderful family of people and participants, bringing multi-million-dollar historic airplanes up here for people to see and to fly and operate, and as a family event, with the food and the radio control models, the lighting being what it is. I mean, it's the best possible. It's better than an ordinary air show because everybody's right close. The lighting is perfect. You don't need a huge lens to get great pictures. You have CAL FIRE, and they've always been very generous at not only displaying, but coming down and talking to us, opening up their entire facility for families to walk through, all the while keeping safety in mind. And you know, if they get a call and so forth. I mean, we've just done it all here. The mainstay of the airport, especially during the 70s, I believe, was mostly the firefighting. And the realization of what a resource that really is for this area. You didn't have the big, heavy air tankers like you have today at McClellan. They could just drop it, you know, 5,000 gallons. Everything was initial attack, and when you had lightning strikes up in the mountains, or when you had fires start up, oftentimes, and I remember this during the 70s, those planes would go out and they'd hit it before the firefighters even got there. And so that was probably the main thing. And as a kid, I remember late 60s, early 70s, there was very little going on up here except for the tankers and a few general aviation comings and goings. Back then, it was all about U.S. Forest Service land being protected and contracting through the USDA Forest Service and California Department of Forestry with the tanker operators, who at that time were private operators. They bought, maintained, and modified the airplanes, and they contracted with USDA for the National Forest. Today, you have private property and homes and subdivisions out in the middle of all that. It's all private. That, yeah, more tankers would be great, but without helicopters, you really don't have the ability to get in and protect those structures, protect the properties. You know, it's a whole different game. And if you study what Southern California does, even during the Santa Anas, you know, it's all about mostly helicopters. You get the planes go in, make the initial attack, try to keep the fire lines, but you notice the helicopters go in and they're able to do surgery in the areas where it's most necessary. And with all the reservoirs you have here and the water, you know, ability and everything, it makes perfect sense to expand into helicopters here. Tying in that wonderful history with all the innovation, with the safety factor, and the fact that it's not downtown where planes are annoying everybody going shopping. It's up on a hill, and it's got an eye to the whole rest of the western county from one spot. You know, it's just it's a facility that you could never build today, or you could never replace it if you ever lost it.
The Forest Service and CAL FIRE have been operating out of the Grass Valley Air Attack Base since the late 50s. The Air Attack Base covers 6.5 acres from the Loma Rica Avenue to the taxiway. The entire land is owned by the Forest Service. The aircraft ramp space is about 2.5 acres that normally holds 3 CAL FIRE aircraft and 1 Forest Service Air Attack aircraft. The remaining 4 acres house the command center, offices, and retardant mixing plant. The retardant is pumped underground to the aircraft.
Two handles, 4 pins, and a harness up front. 2 handles, 4 pins, 1 harness. Pink checklist. Scope 5000. All right.
2381 on Forest Hill Road in Mission, like well developed, probably over 20 acres now.
Okay, just pick up the fire detector at that pond and carry it back towards the hill. I'm going to do a coverage level 6 and try to put the whole load in the green at the edge.
Any aircraft at Robinson Mill area, airtime 5037 miles south, 4000 altimeter 2996, 2 tankers in tow, identify 122.925. Skycenter copy, you'll be south of the TFR near the Rutherford area, 8000, altimeter 2990. Unit with traffic for glass air attack on 12292.
5,500, number 2 battery, 6 clear number 3, 4,500 out.
The next few years of airport improvements are heavily focused on pavement restoration and lighting upgrades. The airport is also looking to expand through acquiring some forested property for firefighting helicopters to operate on. The aviation businesses that are currently operating out of the airport are limited in hangar and ramp space. The airport is also looking to acquire the old public work yard to allow these businesses to grow, as well as to attract new business and potentially add a restaurant. Your Nevada County Airport plays a vital role in the economic health and the safety of Nevada County.